Right, good evening everybody. Welcome to another webinar on the TCS NQT in our long series of TCS NQT webinars. We are going to continuously do a lot more webinars to help you crack TCS NQT and get into the TCS Ninja role. Before I begin, I just want to give a huge recognition to Sri Pujita, who's always online, who's the first one to be online. So recognition to her. She's the first one to say hi or hello. So yeah, congratulations. You're always so early, and we're so glad to see your enthusiasm to learn, and wishing all of the students the same level of enthusiasm. Keep learning, keep rocking. I'm sure you're going to get into TCS Ninja as well as clear TCS NQT and get into TCS Ninja. So the topic for today is going to be strings, and we're going to cover a little bit of strings. Specifically, I'm going to cover more about strings in the C language. So whatever I say, it will be useful for C++, Java, Python also, but very specifically a little bit about C in strings because strings in C, because a lot of C students have difficulty understanding this. And then in the next webinars, we'll cover a little bit of arrays, and we'll also cover a little bit more about patterns, because the feedback we got is a lot of you are still concerned about patterns, don't know about patterns. So in the next few webinars, we're going to do about arrays, we're going to do about patterns, and yes, we are going to cover the programming MCQs also, so don't worry about that. So if you want to be updated about all of the next webinars that are coming up, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Make sure you subscribe, share with your friends so that they can also subscribe, because you don't want to get placed alone, you want to get placed with your friends. So make sure that you share with them, like this video, and do subscribe to this channel for all of the upcoming videos. So let's get started with today's question. And I'll actually just this time open it up in the Edyst platform so that we can discuss this question directly. And for all of those who are joining the first time, towards the end of this video, we'll also discuss the general pattern of NQT and how the NQT is going to happen. So just wait towards the end of the video. Those of you who are joining for the first time, and those of you who've been watching regularly, you will know what the pattern is, why we are focusing so much on the coding questions, because the coding questions do cost about 30 marks, right? So let me just open this in the Edyst platform and a little bit of a introduction to the Edyst platform over here. Right, so as you can see, we have created this complete coding tests pack for everybody. This test pack specifically is not only for TCS NQT, but it's also for all of the other companies that are going to come to your campus. So for example, after NQT, you are most likely going to have the Wipro test that they're going to announce soon. So this is the Wipro box. We have a lot of questions based on Wipro. Then you'll have companies like AMCAT coming to hire for other companies. So tests like AMCAT will also happen. So we have a box for AMCAT, we have a box for Mindtree, we have a box for many other IT companies, for EPAM and so on. So we have a bunch of boxes, and the best part is we keep adding to these boxes, so that what will happen is you're going to get a lot of companies coming in, and you'll get in more companies in September, in October, in November, and as and when these companies keep coming in, we'll keep adding some of the questions, so you can always refer back to this module, refer back to the tutorials, and see how to solve all of these questions, right? Okay, so in this we're going to look at a previous TCS question, so the one that was asked in TCS Ninja, and this question is called string arrangement. So if you can see, these generally maths, loops and patterns, strings are generally the kind of topics that TCS has been asking, and we've made questions on those, and we're continuously adding more questions day by day. So we'll open the string arrangement question, and I have some of the code for it, but I'll just delete that and we'll do the code again from starting. So what the question says is, write a program to get 3 strings as input. So right off the bat, just by looking at the question, we understand that it's a strings question. So we have 3 strings as an input, and the first string, what we have to do is take all of the vowels and replace them with this double quotes. In the second string, we replace all of the consonants with an asterisk, and in the third string, we convert all of the lowercase letters to uppercase letters. So with all of these 3 strings, and in this just one question, multiple concepts are being tested. The concept of how do we find a vowel, how do we find a consonant, and how do we change a character from lowercase to uppercase, right? So how do we go about doing this? We will again divide this into 3 steps, into different steps of pseudocode and everything. But what I want you to all notice is replacing the vowels and replacing the consonants is kind of similar. So for example, we all know the vowels are A, E, I, O, U, right? And then if it's a string, we have to look for capital also. So we are looking for about 10 vowels, that is the small A, E, I, O, U and the capital A, E, I, O, U. Now for consonants, are you going to check for the remaining 21 alphabets? So like the lowercase characters would be 21 because there are 26 alphabets. You will have the remaining 21 as consonants. Will you actually write an if statement for 21 consonants? Or rather, the best way to do it is check if it's a vowel. If it's not a vowel, then it's automatically a consonant. So that's what we are going to do. We are not going to check all of the 21 characters and see if it's a consonant or not. We will always check for a vowel, and if it's a vowel, then we will do whatever operation we want. But if it's not a vowel, we will do another set of operations. So if you just check that, then the first and the second string, whatever we want to do, the logic is pretty similar. Here we replace the vowels and here we replace the non-vowels. So if it's not a vowel, then we replace it. So that's what we're going to do over here. And in the last case, we are going to convert lowercase to uppercase. So that's a different concept and we'll come to that. Now let's just look at some of the examples. So over here we have hello. So the first string we have to change all of the vowels into quotes. So that's what is happening here. That is, just zooming in, right? So as you can see, what's happening in the first string, we should replace the vowels with the quotes. So if you have to replace the vowels with the quotes, we had hello over here, Hello. So we have to replace that with H quote LL quote, right? Similarly, in the second string, we are supposed to replace all of the non-vowels, that is the consonants. So over here we have HI. I is a vowel, so we are not going to replace that. But H is a non-vowel, it's a consonant, so we are going to put asterisk over here. And finally, in the third string, we replace all of the lowercase characters with uppercase. So here G and M are uppercase, but OOD and ORNING, these are all lowercase. So they have to be converted to uppercase. So that's what's happening here. They are being converted to uppercase. So first things first, I hope you understood how the input and output are working. One second, I'll just move so that you can all see what's happening here. So just to repeat, HELLO, what we had was H quote and L quote, so LL and then quote. For HI, we replaced the H with an asterisk, and for the good morning, we replaced the OO and ORNING with a capitals. Right, so that's what's happening here. So I hope everybody understood the input format and how the output is going to happen, right? So let's just go back to the slides and see what exactly we are supposed to do over here. So in this question, before we even go ahead with the question, and as I keep saying in all of the webinars, don't suddenly run towards the code. First try to analyze the given code, try to analyze the logic, and then only you should go for the code. So that's what we're going to do right now. What's the first thing that they're expecting us to do? The first thing that we're expected to do is take a string as input, and not just one string. We're supposed to take 3 strings as input. So what we're going to do is we are supposed to take 3 different strings. So we'll define 3 strings. We're going to define 3 strings, and for each one of them we have to take input. Now automatically the question comes whether how do we even take input? In your particular language, how do you take input? Like, you could know the logic of this question, but if you've not practiced about how you can take input a string, how you can take input an integer, a decimal, you will not be able to solve this problem or other problems. So how do we take input a string? That's the first question. Let's say we understood that. Then in each of these strings, we have to do certain operations. Like some places we have to take vowels, and we have to convert that into a quote, or we have to take a consonant and convert that into an asterisk, or take a lowercase and convert it to an uppercase. Now we have to do this not for the entire string, but character by character. That is, we are never working entirely on the entire string. We are doing it on one of the characters at any time. Therefore, we need to know how we can go through a string, how we can traverse through the entire string. That is, we can start from the first character and go till the last character. This is the other thing we need to know. Finally, we need to know how to change the character and especially how do we change it from lowercase to uppercase, because see, these two cases are just substitution cases. If we get the character, we can change it to a quotes or we can change it to an asterisk. But how do we change a character, that is some character, to an uppercase character of the same level, right? So we want to take A and we want to change it to an uppercase A. We don't want to change it to an uppercase B or an uppercase C. We want to change it to an uppercase A. Similarly with Z, we want to change it to an uppercase Z, right? Or Z, right? So that's what we want to do currently. So these are the three topics that we are supposed to do, and let's go through them one by one. First things first is going through a string, right? Taking input I'll show you during the code, but let's going through a string. Now this logic, that is starting from 0 and go up till null, I'll tell you what this means. Any string, for those of you who don't remember, let me just revise this for you. Any string in C, C++ and Java is represented as a array of characters. It can be represented as an array of characters. Specifically in C and C++, it can definitely be represented as an array of characters. So let's say I get a string like this, hello. The way it will store it in an array is that it will take it like this, HELLO, and at the end you have something like this. What is that? I'll just come to it. But you have each of these characters stored as a part of the array, right? So you have each of the characters over here. So there's an H character, E character, L, O, and then there is something called a null character. The null character tells us that we have reached the end of the string. So everything before the null character is the string. The null character and anything after it is nothing. It's not part of the string. So this null over here tells us that we have reached the end of the string. What basically it says is, if you look at an array, and just revising your array concepts, arrays start from 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So we have 5 characters totally, which is starting from 0 going up to 4. The 5th character will be null. That's what we have over here. So the moment we have a null character, we know we've reached the end of the string. Why is this important? Because we are going to use a for loop. We are going to start from 0 and we are going to keep going until we hit the end of the array. But we don't even know when the string ends. Like, what is the length of the string? Nobody has told us that. So the best way to find out the end of the string is if we hit null. If we hit null, then we definitely know we have hit the end of the string. This is very, very useful in C and C++. Java and Python, it's completely easy to find out the length of a string, so I won't go there. Even C++, if you just import the string library, then also it's quite easy to do. But let's say you're new to programming, you're a C programmer, there is no time to learn a new language. Therefore, we are going to just use this. We are going to go through the character array, and the last element of the string is going to be null. So we know we have reached the end. Okay. So this is how we go through the array. The second thing that is very, very important to note, let's look at the second example, which is changing from a lowercase to an uppercase. How do we go about doing this? How do we go about doing this lowercase to uppercase business? Well, for that, what we're going to do is we're going to use this property of characters called ASCII values. What are ASCII values? Well, to not go into too much depth, every character has a certain integer that represents it. So, for example, the small a is represented by 97, small z is represented by 122. The best part about this is that a is 97, b is 98, c is 99, and so on. So it's in a continuous series. It could have been a non-continuous series, like each of the alphabets could have had a different value, but the ASCII values are such that they're all continuous, so that when you start from 97, exactly after 26 elements you will reach z, which is 122. Similarly, capital A is 65 and capital Z is 90. So you have these 26 elements between them. So you'll have B as 66, C as 67, and so on. So that's what you'll have. Now, whenever you want to convert any uppercase or lowercase character to uppercase, all you have to do is get this 97 to get converted to 65, which is you have to subtract 32 from it. What's the difference between both of them? 32. So if you do 97 minus 32, you will get 65. Similarly, if you do 122 minus 32, you will get 90. So at any time, if you wanted to convert, let's say capital B into small b, all you have to do is minus 32 and you would get this. So sorry, if you wanted to convert small b into capital B, you just have to subtract 98 minus 32, you would get 66, or 99 minus 32, you are going to get 67. So this is the capitals, sorry, this is the small c and this is the capital C. Anytime you want to convert your lowercase character to an uppercase, just subtract it by 32 and you'll get this. Now, my suggestion to you is these 4 numbers you should have by heart. In fact, you just need to remember these 3 numbers. This small a, capital A and 32. Remember that. And 32 also you can derive from small a and capital A. So really remember these 2 numbers, that is small a is 97, capital A is 65. You should memorize these are very important. They will always be asked in your technical interviews, in your programming MCQs, and most importantly in your coding questions. They are often very useful if you're going to get a character or a string question. Okay, all right, so now we can go back to what our pseudocode was, and what we are supposed to do right now is first take string as input, which I'll show you how to do. We are going to go through the string, update it update the vowels with quotes in the first string, update the consonants with stars in the second string, and change the lowercase to an uppercase in the third string. Okay, all right, so that's what we are supposed to do, and let's dive directly into the code and see how it's done. We'll keep coming back to this slide to see what we're supposed to do next. So I'm going to code directly on the Edyst platform, and I think you all should get used to doing the code on an online platform, because in the TCS NQT you are not going to get the luxury of writing in your own editor and then uploading that in some editor. You're not going to get that. In Code Vita that was allowed, you could code locally, but I don't think you're going to get that luxury in this. So please make sure you're used to how to type in an online editor. Trust me, it's very different from doing it locally or doing it in other online platforms. The main reason is we have this run and submit thing. If you do it on your own online platforms, you will give it the inputs that you know. But behind this submit, what we have are inputs that you don't know. We have created special inputs, and these inputs test your code with a lot of different test cases. So if you don't actually test with the submit in a proper online compiler like ours, then you are going to have a difficult time on the day of NQT, because you have not yet seen how test cases work. Okay, all right. So let's just start with the C code, and as I say always, this first few things that I'm writing, this should already be by heart to you. You should not have to think about any of this when you are writing the code. So you shouldn't be thinking over there, oh, what is all of this, what is int main and all. You shouldn't be. This should be pretty simple to you. Okay, so hash include stdio.h, int main return 0. This is the most basics of C. You should have this return memorized completely. Okay, now before I go into the actual code, what I'm going to do is, you remember what we had was, we have to in the first and second string find out if a given character is a vowel or not. So before I write the main method, I want to write a method called isVowel. This isVowel is going to accept a character, let's say alpha. Okay, it's going to accept a character alpha. It's going to return an integer with 1 or 0. So what it's going to do is, it returns 1 if alpha is a vowel, else it returns 0. Right? That's what it does. So if it's a vowel, it's going to return 1, otherwise it's going to return 0. So that's what this thing will do. And the reason I wrote this is, I don't want to repeat the same code again and again. Like, we have to do that for the first string, we have to do that for the second string, but with a little difference. So I don't want to do that again and again. I just want to write it once, and it will help me debug also. Now, an alphabet can be a vowel, or we can just check it pretty easily through a simple if condition. And that is, let's check for all of the lower case first. So if alpha equal to A, or it's either that, or it's going to be equal to E, or it has to be equal to I, or O, sorry, not 0, O, and or U. So A, E, I, O, U. If it is equal to any one of these, we have to return 1. Otherwise, there's still one more condition to check. That is, if it is equal to any of the uppercase of these characters. So I'll just copy that and change this with uppercase, right? A, E, I, O, and U, right? That's what it does. If it's this case also, then also we're going to return 1. Otherwise, if it's none of these cases, then we know it's not a lowercase character and it's not an uppercase vowel. So therefore, it has to be a consonant, right? So we'll return it as 0. Okay. Now we've written this function. Our code will become easier for us. So what's the first thing we're supposed to do? The first thing that we have to do is actually define the 3 strings that we're going to use. So in the main method, we first define the 3 strings that we're going to use, and let's then take input for these 3 strings. Okay. So let's do that. Now this question has not given us how big the string can be. Let's assume that it's about 100 characters. Usually the question will tell you. If it's not, then I think 100 should be safe to assume. So let's take word_1 to be of a length 100. Okay. Then let's take word2 also to be the same length. 100, and word3 also. Okay, so once you've taken that, we need to scan each and every string. Now, this is the part where you have to be very careful in C. In C, you have different scanning functions for different types of strings. For example, here, all of the strings don't seem to have any spaces in between them. So if that's the case, I can just use the simple function, which is this. If I do scanf mod s, and at that point, I just do word_1, this is going to scan my word1, okay, but it's going to scan only up till it finds a space character. Luckily for us, all of the strings are without spaces. If it is with a space, then it's a different approach, so we'll look at that later. But if since all of these are without space, this one will work, right? Similarly, we can take input for word2 and then for word3. Okay, now let's go into what's going to happen for let's define an integer I. This is just for our for loops. Now what's actually going to happen first? For the first string, let's look at the question. What does it say? For the first string, replace all of the vowels with a quotes, double quotes. Okay, so this is how we're going to do it. What we're going to do is go through the entire array, as I said. So the way we'll do it is we'll start from 0, I equal to 0. We have to go, there's some condition, we'll look at that, and I plus plus, right? What is the condition over here? The condition is we are doing for word1. So if word1 of I should not be equal to null, right? So if you remember, this is the symbol for null. As long as word1 of I is not equal to null, we'll keep going through it. The moment it is, we should just break out. So that's what this for loop says, right? Okay, so right. So what should we do for the first string? In the first string, we are supposed to replace all of the vowels with a double quotes. So the way we'll do that is if word_1 of I, that is the current character, if this is a vowel, so we just want to check, we'll pass this to our isVowel function, right? So isVowel word_1_I equal to 1. If it's a vowel, then change this vowel with a double quotes, right? So that's what we did. We made it a double quotes. That's all. That's it. This is the first string done. If it's a vowel, we change it to a double quotes. Now, what was it for the second string? Let's go up again. For the second string, it says replace the consonants with an asterisk. So again, let's do that. We'll go through the entire array, but this time we are supposed to go to word2 till word2 is not null. If word2 of I is equal to 0, what does this mean? That is, it is a consonant. That is, if is vowel, we are going to check if it's a vowel is equal to 0, means it's not a vowel. Then what are we going to do? We are going to take word_2 of I is equal to, what are we going to do? We need to make it an asterisk. So we change it to an asterisk. Okay, so first string done, second string done. Now what are we supposed to do for the third string? Well, for the third string, convert the lowercase characters to uppercase characters, right? All right. So here, what are we going to do? Let's again take the simple code for going through an array. So this is the code that is for going through an array. This time it's word 3. Alright. Now what we are supposed to check is, if it is a lowercase character, we should convert it to an uppercase character. How do we find out if our character is lowercase or it is uppercase? Well, the way to do that is, let's just go back to our slides and see. If you remember, the lowercase character will be between 97 to 122. If our characters are between 97 to 122, we know that it is a lowercase character. If our characters are between 65 to 90, then it's an uppercase character. So just going back to where we were coding, if the given word underscore 3 of I is a lowercase character, and so for a lowercase character, what should it be? It should be between 97 and 122. So greater than equal to 97 and word underscore 3 of I is less than or equal to 122. If it's a lowercase character, in that case, word underscore 3 of I, what should we do? What is the number that we should subtract it with? The number was 32. So we take word underscore 3 of I is equal to word underscore 3 of I minus 32. That's what we have to do over there. So here, let's just write the comments. Replaced vowels with quote. Over here we replaced consonants with star, and here changed lowercase to uppercase. Right? That's done. What are we left with at the end? Now that we have modified all of our strings, we just need to print them. So let's print them one by one in a separate line. So mod s, and then we'll do backslash n. Backslash n is to give a new line. So we do that. We first will print word underscore 1. Then let's print word 2 and word 3. Word 2, word 3. Alright. Okay. Let's run. Let's see if we are getting some errors or not. Because we are almost done. We just changed all of the vowels with the quote, consonants with stars, we changed lowercase to uppercase, printed all of the words. Let's see what happens. Are we going to get an error or not? Okay, so it does in function main redeclaration of word 2 with no linkage. Let's go there. Main C 1542. So let's just go and look at line number 15. What's actually happening here? Okay, so we look at this over here. Word 2 has been defined 2 times. We did word 2 of 100 and we did again word 2 of 100. So this is one thing I want you all to see, how it can be easy if you read your error properly. If you look over here, it clearly says that you redeclared word 2, right? And it actually points out to the exact point that this point is the place where you're getting an error. So I just simply need to go there and make it word 3. Let's see what other errors we get. So let's just run it. Okay, our test case is passed. But I hope you understood how that's done. That if you're getting an error, don't just assume that that error is bad or you're going to have some issues. The computer is there to help you a little bit, and if you're getting an error, it will show you exactly where that error is. So you just need to go there and change it accordingly. So let us submit this question and see if it's submitting. And yes, it submitted and we passed all the test cases. So again, as I say in all of the webinars, don't assume that you will pass all of the test cases in the first try. That's why you have 30 minutes to do this coding question. Take your time, make sure that you spend majority of your time on logic. Then if you spend your time on logic, the only time you will not be passing the coding test cases is when you made some syntax errors. And syntax errors you can fix quite easily. Logical errors to fix at the end of the exam is actually quite difficult. So don't get into the trap of going directly into code. Do the logic a little bit. We'll just recap what we spoke so far. So what we've spoken so far is we had 3 things to do. We saw how to take string as an input in C. If you want to see how to do a string as an input in C++, Java and Python, I really suggest you just go to the Edyst platform and check out the free warm-up, and I'll show you that right now. In the warm-up section, which is like free for everybody, if you go to the warm-up, you can go to take input, and in this, while there is a video also, you can check the reading material which has integer input output. This is for C, C++, Java, Python, so really for all of the languages. And if you go to the strings, this is if you can see, this is exactly what we did. This is the C code. For C++ it's a little different, for Java it's a little different, and for Python it's again a little different, right? So that's what it is. If you don't recall how to take a string input in your particular language or any of the inputs in your language, then just go to the warm-up and you will get all of those things as well. So that's the first thing we realized. How do we take a string as an input? Then we saw how to go through a string in C, C++, and Java. We are going to do that going through a for loop. In Python, you don't really need to do that. There's a very simple way to do it. So I leave you to it, all the Python students. But C, C++, Java, just going through a string, use a for loop, go till the end of the string, and once we were going through the string, we also saw something called is vowel. That is how to check if a particular thing is a vowel or not, a particular character is a vowel or not, and we actually wrote a code for that. So is it a vowel? We wrote the code for that, and if it's not a vowel, then it's automatically a consonant. So we understood that part. And then finally changing from a lowercase to an uppercase by using the ASCII values. Just to remind you all, if you remember nothing, at least remember this, that the small a is 97 and capital A is 65. This will help you a lot in your programming MCQs as well as in your coding questions. If you want to convert any of the characters from a lowercase to an uppercase, just subtract 32 from the lowercase alphabet, you will get an uppercase, and add 32 to the uppercase, you will get it converted to a lowercase. So you don't need to import any libraries like to lower, to upper. You don't need to do all of that. You can just do this arithmetic of minus and plus 32, and then you'll be sorted, right? So you'll be able to convert from lower to an uppercase. So these are three things that we saw. We also saw how to print a string, and that's mainly it. These are the three things we saw. I hope you understood strings. 99% of strings questions are similar to this, where what you have to do is you have to go through the entire string as an array, and at each iteration of the array you are making some manipulation, or you're making some addition, subtraction, or something like that. So that is how strings work. Try out more and more practice questions on string by yourself, right? So right now what I'm going to do is just going to look at the comments. If there are any questions, if anybody has any questions, we're going to do that at the end of the session. That's what we do. So we're going to do the question sessions right now. So if you have any questions, please post it on the chat, which is on the right hand side. Just post your questions on the chat and we'll reply. Otherwise, if you're not able to think of your questions, you can see the email and the WhatsApp number over here. Just message us either on email or WhatsApp, and we'll be happy to respond to you over that also, right? So yeah, any questions?
Does NQT coding have hidden test cases?
All right, so one of the questions we are getting is does TCS NQT have hidden test cases? And so what somebody means to say is like, apart from the test cases that we see, are there test cases behind? Well, any online contest is going to have those test cases. None of those test cases, basically for any online contest or any coding test, you are never going to have just the given test cases and the given output. Otherwise, what will happen? You are going to just hard code it. That is, you'll see, hey, for this input I have to print this output. You won't do any logic, you'll just print the output. So for those kind of cases, that's why they give hidden test cases, so that there are certain test cases which you don't see. So yes, there will be hidden test cases in this.
One more week to go, so any tips?
Okay, so one good question is, we have one more week to go. What are some tips that we can do? So I'll just open up this. It's a good way of actually introducing to all of the new students who I think probably come here the first time and watching this webinar for the first time. This is what the syllabus looks like for TCS NQT. At least this was what it was last year. So you have English, quants, programming, MCQs, and coding. Now all of these sections are mandatory. Specifically coding is very, very mandatory, but you have all of these sections. You will have to complete one section before you move on to the next section. Each one of them could have certain sectional cutoffs also, right? So for example, some students are asking me, sir, if I don't do coding and programming MCQs, but as long as I score 35 on 35 over here, will I get some marks? Will I be able to go? Well, we don't know if there's a sectional cutoff or not. Imagine if they keep a 50% cutoff on each one of them, then you need to have at least minimum 50% in them, even though your score might be higher, right? So definitely there will be some sectional cutoffs. Make sure you read the instructions about that, especially read the instructions regarding the negative marking. So if I am you and I have just 1 week left, the first 4 days or 5 days, what I'm going to do is spend my time doing the coding and programming MCQs, because these are the toughest ones. Always start with the toughest things, and these are the toughest ones. You're going to have, so for the first time after a long time, you'll be practicing coding. A lot of you may not have done coding recently. A lot of you have just done a little bit of C revision for Code Vita or something. In that case, your coding and programming MCQs will be weak. Please make sure you prepare for them as soon as possible. And then towards the end, make sure you revise your quants and English. Specifically quants and English, both of them have certain tips and tricks, so those are pretty easily available online. Go ahead and do check those out, and remember those 2 or 3 days before the exam starts. Again, this is not one of those tests where uh, for any test rather, you shouldn't be thinking of what should I suddenly do. If your basics are right for your maths and everything, your quants and English should probably be okay. So make sure that you start with the coding and programming MCQs, because most students face a difficulty there. Then you go into the quants and English and try to just go through the tips and tricks that have already been taught to you, and you can then brush them up over the last 2 days. Right. All right. So I think that's about it. That's mostly all of the questions we got. We do get a lot of requests for doing more questions on the webinar. So all of those requests of yours, please send them by email and we'll be more than happy to cover them. A lot of people have sent some pattern questions. So definitely on Monday or Tuesday in the upcoming week, we are going to do some things on the pattern questions. That's one thing we'll do. We'll also be covering a few programming MCQs in the webinar. So please make sure you subscribe to this channel. You'll get a notification on what we're doing next. We'll also be doing a marathon webinar sometime before the NQT happens. So we'll be able to do a lot of revision at that point. So to get all of those subscriptions, make sure you to get all of those notifications, make sure you subscribe to the Edyst YouTube channel. Just click subscribe and click the notifications, the bell icon to get the notifications, and also like this video and share with your friends, and they will also get benefit out of it. All right. See you next time, everybody. Thank you all for being online, and see you soon. Wishing you all the best for the TCS NQT preparation. Just one last thing, if you want to get your NQT preparation started, please go to bit.ly/edyst_ccp. That is, you have to type this in your web browser. Don't type it in Google, type it in your browser. Once you type this, you will go to our Edyst course and you can just click apply now and start coding. One module is completely free of cost for you. Try it out, see your own level in the programming languages. So yes, wishing everybody all the best, and I hope to catch up with you on the next webinar where we'll be covering another previously asked TCS question. So thanks everybody for being online, and see you soon.